Hello and well met. This is Layron with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today we are going to be taking a look at some more Chat GPT content. This is by no means a definitive tool, but it is something that you can use to help leverage whatever projects you're doing, whether it be small or something large. So I'd like to kind of start with the beginning. So basically, I would like to just kind of start from scratch, like really nothing in particular planned. And this is where I think this tool shines for sure. You don't really necessarily want to force ChatGPT into creating content for you. So this is basically a variation of a ChatGPT that I've been working on for the last 3 months. And I call it the 5e content creator because it's more bent on that. I mean, you could do whatever you want with it, but if I go into the GPT itself, the custom one, and go to configure, it has some custom instructions, and then down here are the PDFs that I've uploaded so that it has some context. And also I've asked it to refer to the Fantasy Grounds Atlassian. And then here are some of the structures that you want to keep in mind in regards to settings and the different types of things you might face when you're basically developing or creating content. Even though these were designed more so for the actual users, for people who are doing conversions, these still apply. So you could follow these guidelines for the product guidelines, and basically this gives you all the parameters and the settings that SmiteWorks recommends for smooth sailing in regards to content. So that's what I use to kind of base my work off of. So if I'm going to make something, I kind of want to refer to this. Now, you can copy and paste this stuff and put it in a better place and then kind of make your own cheat sheet out of it. So instead of having to come to this website all the time, you could possibly make a little chart or something for yourself so you're not constantly have to come back here. However, they do update this occasionally, so it might be a good idea to check it at least every 6 months or so. But they just kind of get into the product development content and what sizes the stuff is and what they recommend. It gives you kind of some notes over here. And then they talk about how they like their product to look, and it's kind of like a style guide. So it depends on what it is that you're doing. So nonetheless, I'm going to be using different tools. Like I would use the token tools to design a few one-off tokens, and also there are things in Chat GPT that you can generate and then later on edit those. So I would probably use something like Canva, or you can use Notepad++, which is your text editor. And then you can use the free GIMP, like Photoshop-like program to edit photos and such. So this is just some tools that I would use for creating content with Fantasy Grounds. Once you get used to using the tools, it's a lot easier and a lot less difficult to build content if you're going to start from scratch, essentially. It's nice to have this clean slate now, so I don't have to worry too much about having too many guidelines or constraints or anything like that, because I'm making it for myself, so I don't really have to worry too much. But these are just ideas and things that you might want to keep in mind. And it's kind of knowing the scope of your project. Like if you're doing a big conversion, like those tools would really help you a lot. If you're doing a small, like one-off type thing, maybe not. But this is just a kind of a way to do stuff. So I don't have very many people watching me at this moment, but if there's anything in particular for Fantasy Grounds or the DnD5e Rule Set that you guys want to see if the platform can handle this, the Chat GPT. I'm not going to do any XML or any sort of programming stuff, but I'm pretty sure if you gave it some good examples and maybe fed it some parameters and gave it some of the templates that SmiteWorks issues for people who are making extensions, this probably would do wonders for helping you speed that process up. I don't think it can do everything for you, but I'm certain it can help you go in the right direction. So I'm just going to actually randomly ask it to create a big bad evil guy, and I want it to just kind of give, some details and stuff and kind of build everything around that. So I'm going to say create a BBEG for the DnD5e Rule Set. I don't even really want it to, make any, I don't want to give it too much. So I'm going to say pick the theme and biome or environment. Because I don't necessarily want to force it even into that. So I usually pick something like, do Underdark or something like that. But so I'm going to have it do the environment, and then I want to say give the NPC a memorable and interesting name, and do not create something too cliche. I don't like that when it just kind of gives you some generic type thing. The whole idea is to kind of come up with something interesting. I don't necessarily want to have the same kind of regurgitated interesting. I like it to have a little bit of surprise and that sort of thing. So we don't want anything too cliche. I want it to create, come a big bad guy. I want it to create a backstory, history, motivations, etc. So do something like that. And then I'm going to ask it to kind of make it more professional, make it more serious. So develop with a professional style and organization. Because I like to have it kind of organized, because sometimes that messes with the creative process, but in terms of Fantasy Grounds, it really helps to have stuff organized. So let's see what it does. So I'm just telling it to create a big bad evil guy or girl for the DnD5e Rule Set. I told it to pick the theme, biomes or environment, so it can kind of theme it the way it wants to, which I think it'll be fun to just try to adapt to that. Give the NPC a memorable and interesting name, and do not create something too cliche. Create a backstory, history, motivations, etc. Develop with a professional style and organization. So we'll see what it does. Now it has some parameters to deal with. Okay, so it's DnD5e, Kalen the Frostvale Sovereign. Theme, ice and description. Okay, so Arctic tundra, glacial caverns. So you just picked this. I didn't give it any sort of, any kind of indication what I wanted. So this is a CR12 creature. It's a elf, actually. Let's see, Frostvale Sovereign. I guess it has all of these different things, but you can see the stat block is not really, I didn't ask it for the stat block, but it kind of made it right, but it's kind of broken because it's using these colons after the traits, and that's not exactly what I wanted. So we'll see what it comes up with. When it's done writing, I'm going to ask it to fix that, because this is not the formatting. Because this won't work with Fantasy Grounds, so that's the thing. Okay, so it's done kind of doing its thing. I'm not really happy with the formatting. I don't mind this stuff here, but I don't like the way it formatted. So what I'm going to ask it to do is I'm going to say, please fix the formatting to match the custom instructions that I have provided in my data. So I want it to use the stuff that the example that I gave it. Remove the bullet points and double check the proficiencies and all that good stuff. So I want it to kind of go through it again. So sometimes this is the kind of stuff that you're going to get when it just tries to do it willy-nilly without using your custom instructions. You almost have to tell it, hey, use the parameters that I set up before. But there again, I'm kind of doing this kind of willy-nilly, so it's not really focused. So that's why it's kind of going on its own accord. So it's not the end of the world. So here's proficiencies and bonuses. So let's see what it does now. So I've asked it to change this. So far it looks pretty good, but now it's messed the stat block up with regards to the ability score. So it kind of fixed it. Let's see. So the actions, the traits, yeah. See, it puts spellcasting in the actions, so I'm gonna have to tell it to not do that. Yeah, so this is kind of some of the stuff that you're going to face when you're doing this. So I'm going to have it stop, and I'm going to say, do not use bullet points in the spells area, and the spell casting is a trait and not an action, and the ability scores should be 2 rows and 6 columns and of data. I'll say with the acronyms on top and the scores below. See, it tries to kind of do that every time. I've tried to mess with it, and it just kind of wants to do it however it wants to do it. So I'll say on top. Okay, we'll see what it says. We'll see what it does, because it's already was starting off on the bad foot here. There it goes. So that's what I wanted to see. Okay, so common, elvish, draconic, ice command. He can move across icy surfaces without the need to make an ability check and cannot be slowed by difficult terrain made of ice. His intelligence modifier to damage of any cold-based spells. He's 12th level spellcaster. And here's his spells, which look right this time. Here's his actions and reactions. So that's not too bad. This is actually what I wanted. So this is closer to the formatting that you would want for Fantasy Grounds, because if you don't have it in a certain format, it won't parse correctly in Fantasy Grounds. So my only complaint here is I did not ask for bold letters. So I'm going to say, please rewrite without the bold letters or HTML, because I don't want it to get in the habit of that. Once it starts doing that, it's hard to get it to stop, because it thinks that that's what you want. So you're kind of defining how you want it to your output, especially if you don't have anything developed for it yet. So please rewrite without the bold letters or HTML markup. All right, we'll see what it does. So you're kind of limited to about 40 of these requests per hour or a couple hours. So you have to be careful with how many times you do these reiterations. I myself don't care. I can come back later and fix this. But if you're going to do this like for a project and you're kind of behind, you got to be kind of careful at how many times you ask it within a certain amount of time. You get like around 40 per hour or every couple hours, but it'll kick back on you and say, oh, you've used too many, it can get kind of annoying. So I liked what it did here, but it didn't include the background. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'll go up and and grab that because this is the stat block information. So when you're doing a new project, whether it's for a campaign or a conversion or anything in Fantasy Grounds that's not going to be directly in your campaign right away, or if it's something you're developing your campaign, it's better to create a separate instance of Fantasy Grounds for that work. So if I go to load campaign and then start building inside of a game I've already running, that could probably cause me issues down the road. Initially, not so much. So I'm going to go ahead and create the game. So I'm going to call it, this is a DnD5e Rule Set. And what I'm going to call it is Glacial Sovereign and then underscore work. So the work means that this is a folder I'm working out of. This is not my campaign. This is just related to a campaign that I might run. So this could be something that you can load in any campaign that has ice or snow. So that makes it a lot more useful in the long run instead of isolating it to one campaign where you can't really do much with it. And when you try to to output it from a campaign that you're already halfway through or something that you're running, you tend to pull in a lot of extra stuff that doesn't belong in there, or you got dependencies on product that you already own. So it's nothing wrong with that, but it's not as efficient. And it can get kind of confusing and you can make a lot of mistakes very easily. So it's easier to work outside of the campaign and import stuff in as you need it, but it's more convenient to just build everything in the campaign and not worry about it. But if you plan on using it again in another situation, or perhaps you're going to be using it in a conversion or something like that, it's better to isolate the work and kind of not have a bunch of, extra stuff loaded in and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to just load, as far as extensions go, since this is a build campaign, I'm just going to have the font, and then I'm going to change the actual theme to the basic leather desktop. That's what I'm most familiar with, and I have the least amount of trouble with that one. And then I'm going to change this to a LAN setup, so I don't need a password or anything. This is going to be localized, so I don't have to worry about people connecting to it. And go ahead and hit start. So this is a fresh kind of starting from scratch. So I just wanted to show this process and to mention that it is easier to build outside of your campaign instead of inside. It's more convenient to build it inside, but it's not as proficient and as effective if you're building in and you got stuff mixed in with the live content, and then you have other content you're using to run the game. When you start linking all those things together in Fantasy Grounds, that's fine. But if you want to export, that's where things can get a little weird, because you have dependencies on open content that you have activated, and then you also have your custom stuff, and then there's the stuff that comes with the actual module or the campaign you're running, which can cause issues, because if the person using this content other than yourself doesn't have that stuff, it'll ask them to have the books and all this other stuff. So when I'm working with a D&D type product or anything, I try to just use the base rules or the core rules or whatever it is. So this will say show on load. I'm going to go ahead and grab my pointer, since that'll be easier for you guys to see. So essentially this show on load, I uncheck that, because when I come back to this, I don't necessarily want to load this. And go ahead and hit next. And I'm just going to load the SRD. I don't need the player's handbook, the monster manual, all that stuff. I just kind of need the basics here. And then that's also safer to use because it's OGL crap and it's not as copyrighted and that sort of thing. And then go ahead and hit next. If I needed to change any options, I would. At this case, I don't need to do anything. I'm not running a game. So I'll hit finish. So I'm going to leave the desktop pretty much like it is. So I have the maximum amount of room. And I don't really need to change a whole lot with the way it looks, because it's just, me working on something. And I don't really have any set agenda right now. Right now, I'm just focusing on this big bad evil guy. And all I'm going to do at this point is take and make a couple different entries. So I'm going to go to the campaign section over here on the right. And then I want to go to the story entries. And I'm just going to make kind of like a starting point So I'm going to hit this add category from this drop down. And I don't have a title for this, so we're just going to call it whatever the Chat GPT called it. So hit edit, and right now it says group 1, but we'll change that to something else. So I want to come over here, and we're going to call this, what was that? The something sovereign. Yeah, so the Frostvale Sovereign is basically what, just call it Frostvale Sovereign, because that'll make it a little bit less, it can be ambiguous, but it kind of makes sense to have more of a generic name and not so specific in case you want to use it. So what we'll just say Frostvale Sovereign. Let's see. Sovereign. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and hit the edit button. That gets you out of the edit mode. And here's the story entry. And I'm only going to use this kind of like a way to stage up the text and such. So we'll say Frostvale. And I might use this entry later as kind of like a placeholder. Sovereign. Make sure I got that right. Sovereign. Yep, I made this one wrong. We got to edit that. Sovereign. There we go. Okay, so that is that. Okay, so this is going to be like my blank slate. And it's kind of like maybe a template or maybe just the initial content. So I want to take and grab the NPCs, because that's what we're working on right now. The big bad evil guy. And I want to take and make a new group, kind of like what we did over here for the story entries. Click the green plus button, which is going to add another group. And I'm just going to take this title and copy and paste it here. And I'll just say NPCs just so I have this title, and go ahead and click on the edit and then select that. So now I kind of have a blank slate here. So now what I want to do is take the information from the stat block from Chat GPT, and I'm going to copy it into the NPC tool here for the import. So the Fantasy Grounds 5th edition rule set has an import tool. Not all of the rule sets have this, but I know this one does. So you're going to go ahead and import text. And this is the cells where you're going to import the content from wherever source you have. The main thing here is the formatting, which is why I gave it such a hard time. And I was trying to make it, kind of get it to going. Huh. Let's see. Going to import the NPC. So I want to go over to the website where I have Chat GPT at. And I might as well grab the stat block. So let me grab this stuff here. Okay, so there's Kalen, the Frostvale Sovereign. So let's minimize that. Come over here on the left and Control Victor or Control V. Right click, clean up text so I can kind of get an idea of what I'm looking at. And I want to check the text. This is where these things break. So this tool is useless if the text is not correct. It has to be correct. Correct is something you're going to have to get used to looking at. But essentially, all the traits need to have a period after them. So like Ice Command, it has a period. Arcane Mastery, there's a period. Spellcasting has a certain format, and it has to be a certain way. It cannot just be whatever you want. You have to kind of follow the formatting. There's a staff here and an ice shard. And then there's a reactions that says glacial shield, and there's a period. So these are things that you'll have to deal with when you're looking at these stat blocks, because if they're not right, it's not going to, and it's not going to turn out right. And then the ability scores are underneath the acronyms for the ability. So use the abilities on top, and then the scores on the bottom in a row. So each one is a separate line. If it's not like that, if it's vertical or it's got commas or it's like strength and then the number after that, it's not going to recognize that. So that's that part. Now I want to grab that history or that backstory and look that over. So that was further up. So this is why this can be kind of frustrating, because I had all this stuff and then I have to, go back and say, okay, fix that. It's not right. So here's the backstory and the motivation. So we'll take a look at that and see if it aligns with something what we want to work with. So again, I'll go back into Fantasy Grounds and take a look at the background area. And I'm going to hit Control V as in Victor. And then what I want to do is I'm just going to take and copy and paste his name. And then come over here on the right and start plugging in the information, make sure it's right, take a look at it. So bring this out. I'm going to take a look at this information here. I'm going to do a little bit of formatting. So Control 2 will make that header. I'm going to leave the spot blank for an image later, so a link to an image, but I'm going to go ahead and hit 2 here, and then I'm going to do the Control B for bold. And then right click to clean up the spaces and such. So this is kind of what it's going to look like, minus the artwork. So that looks pretty good. So it says, Kalen was once a renowned scholar and a magician among the High Elves, celebrated for his groundbreaking research in elemental magics. However, a forbidden experiment involving the elemental planes led to a tragic accident, freezing his home city in eternal winter and turning its inhabitants into icy statues. Exiled and tormented by guilt, Kalen ventured into the icy wastes, where he discovered an ancient hidden civilization in the glacial caverns. Consumed by remorse and the cold magic that now courses through his veins, Kalen's personality has become as frigid as his new home. He seeks to undo the curse he brought upon his city, but his methods are ruthless and driven by a desperate obsession. Kalen is manipulating the elemental energies to find a cure, even if it means endangering others. He views outsiders as potential threats or tools to achieve his ends, showing little of his former compassion. So Kalen's lair is a magnificent ice palace hidden deep within glacial caverns, guarded by creatures of ice and snow, along with reanimated frozen statues of his former kin. The caverns are filled with treacherous ice traps and puzzles that protect the inner sanctum, where Kalen conducts his experiments. Kalen can serve as a complex antagonist, driven by a tragic past and noble intentions gone awry. Adventurers might initially see him as a villain, only to discover his tragic backstory and be faced with the moral dilemmas. Kalen can become an uneasy ally against a greater threat, or remain a determined foe to the end. His mastery of ice and deception makes him a formidable and unpredictable opponent. So I don't mind that. That's a really cool backstory. It's decent. It's a little bit cliche, but not bad. It's kind of like he's Jack Frost in a sense. So I don't mind it. So I'm going to go ahead and run with it. So I'm going to click on the import. And the thing I want to do with this is I want to check to make sure that this was imported correctly. And if you don't have tokens assigned or any of the artwork done, it's going to give you a letter token, which is normal. So it just takes the first letter. So in this case, it's Kalen. And it looks like it got everything right. He's got ice-infused robes, armor class 17. That's kind of cool. 142 hit points. Wow. Intelligence and wisdom saving throws, arcana, deception, perception. He's got common, elvish, draconic languages. He's a CR 12 with +4 proficiency bonus. He has this ice command trait, arcane mastery. He has his spells which are themed for his type of character. So he has Ray of Frost, Mage Hand, and Light. He has Shield, Ice Knife, Disguise Self, Misty Step, Mirror Image, Hold Person, Counter Spell, Sleet Storm, Frost Nova, which is a custom spell, Ice Storm, Greater Invisibility, Cone of Cold, Wall of Force, and then Freezing Sphere. He has his Frostbite Staff that does an additional 2d6 cold damage. And he has ice shards that he can throw, which are kind of like, like a missile weapon. Those do 4d6 cold damage. Damn. Okay. And then he has a glacial shield, which is basically, it's a shield of ice. It gains +5 against that attack, potentially causing it to miss. So he can create this big shield of ice, kind of like a shield spell. So we're going to have to deal with that custom spell. I don't know what Frost Nova does, but I imagine it's some kind of storm or something like that. He's immune to cold, but I should give him a vulnerability to fire, because to balance this out, he should be vulnerable to fire, just in my opinion. He doesn't have to be, but I think that's a good idea. So fire spells will hurt him. And that's why he's got his ice shield, right? So it just kind of helps him with that. And then on the back, it looks really good because you got this summary, you got this backstory, you got all this stuff listed here. So yeah, it looks great. So that's not bad. If I had to hand enter all this and not monkey around with, so much stuff, it would probably take me about an hour to do this, or close to an hour, to come up with all this and then copy and paste it and then check it and all that stuff. But with a Chat GPT type tool, if I didn't have to keep reiterating what I wanted out of that, probably like 5 minutes. It's big time savings. And that's why most of the reason why I use the AI, because it really cuts down on typing. I'm not very quick at typing, so if I have an excuse, that's it, typing, because I suck at it. All right, so the next thing is, let's talk about that Supernova spell, or Frost Nova. So I want to go back to the Chat GPT, which is a customized version that I created to create content for the DnD 5th edition rule set and Fantasy Grounds. So was that a mouthful? So I want it to please create an Ice Nova, as mentioned in the previous conversation. Format in the official DnD5e style format. I don't just want a list. And I'll say, please provide a little bit of lore context, because I want to know where this came from. Maybe it was something that he created, or maybe it's something he was granted, who knows, but I'd like to have a little context for custom spells. So please create the Ice Nova spell, which is something that it came up on its own, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so Frost Nova, excuse me, not Ice Nova. Frost Nova is a cooler name anyways, so let's see. Frost Nova. Okay, so let's see what it does. So it's going to make the spell, hopefully in a decent format with some context, because I don't like just to make stuff and not have any context. So far, I like the formatting. It looks good. You release a burst of frigid air from your body, rapidly freezing the surrounding area. Each creature in 20-foot radius has to make a con saving throw or take 66 damage on a failed save. Ow, it's kind of like a fireball. except for it emits from you. So Frost Nova is a signature spell developed by Kalen during his years of isolation in the glacial caverns. There we go. So this is a custom spell. So I want to enter this in a fantasy ground. So I'm going to take this content here and just copy and paste it into fantasy ground somewhere. That way I don't have to keep going back and forth. So that's why I created that space in fantasy grounds to make it a little easier to work. So I'm going to paste that in here. That way I have the text and I don't have to, go back and forth between here and that page. And then I'm going to go to spells under character and develop the spell. So again, I'm going to make the Frost Sovereign header in the spells area. So hit the green plus button, click this edit button, and then come in here and copy and paste where it says Frost Nova. So I'm making a custom spell. And in this case, I'm making a custom group. So all my custom work can go in there. So, oops, I didn't want to do that. Control Z. Okay, I want to make another group. There we go. I didn't want to change that SRD data. Okay, so Frostvale Sovereign. Okay, so now that I've made that, now I want to take and make a new spell. So like that, and this is Frost Nova, I believe. And stretch this out a little bit. Let's see, the description and the lore context is going to go in here. So that'll come here. And what we'll do is we'll put, let's see, put that up there. Here's the lore context. So at least you have, some idea of where this came from. Because when you get custom spells coming from every which direction, it kind of sucks. Nice to know, like, okay, how did this get here? The school is what? Evocation. So we can take these bits of information over here and copy and paste these in here. There's really not a good way to do this other than copying and paste. Casting time is duration is instantaneous. So you want to get all this stuff filled out. And then what's the summary? Anyways, let's see. Verbal somatic, 3rd level. Casting time, 1 action. So it takes them an action to do that. Range is self 20-foot radius. So we'll put that in there. Is there any components to it? You'd think you want a little pellet of ice. Verbal somatic. Okay. Let's see. 3rd level, cast on 1 action, instantaneous duration. Evocation, attack, or save. We already have that in here. It's built into this. And then damage or effect is cold. Okay, so that's the spell. So once you have that created, it's in its own group. And when you build the NPC or the character, you can actually add this in if you wanted to, but it has to be able to pull on something. So let me unlock this, and down where it says source, we're going to put, let's see, what is this? I got to look at another spell, I forget. I think that's what book it's coming from, or it could also be like wizard, like you can define who can use the spell. So let me take a look at another spell, and we'll see what they look like. I forget. It's been a while since I made a spell, so bear with me here. So if I open up this spell, I can't do anything with it, but if you make a copy, you can open up the copy and let's take a look at how it's formatted. So this is a good way to kind of get an idea of how to do these. So this one is a level 2. It says 90 feet. Components, verbal, somatic. I'll just say, I'm going to lie and just say ice pellet. So you need to have an ice pellet in your hand when you cast it. Let's see, source, wizard. There we go. So that's what I want. Wizard, and I will say warlock. Warlocks can use it too. But those are the only 2 classes that can use it. If there was such thing as an elementalist, I would put that in there, but there isn't. So the source is going to be wizard. Here's the description. There is no higher level casting of this, thank God. It's already too powerful as it is. And that's it. So I'm just kind of checking over to see if I got it right. So evocation, 1 action, here's the feat, verbal somatic with a note, and an instantaneous. So that's just making a custom spell. And the only reason I made this spell is because it called out for a custom spell in the actual description. I wouldn't have even made this if had it not done that. Okay, so that's that. And so this is kind of this thing over here is kind of like a way for me to kind of keep track of what I'm working on, and also to kind of have an area to stage up the text. So I'm just going to go to the next thing. I'm going to actually link Kalen here just in case, and that way I have it in another spot, and I'll go ahead and left click and drag it down to the hotkeys. So this way, if I have to come back to it, I'm not digging around looking for it. And I'm going to also bookmark this actual note here just in case. So that way, when I come back, I don't have to deal with that. As a matter of fact, if you're going to use Fantasy Grounds and it's been a while or you're new to it, if you open up the options and you click on this, let's see, desktop, restore Windows on start, turn it on because it's off by default. That will bring these windows back up if you happen to leave Fantasy Grounds and you come back. So that's been recently added to the interface so that it makes it more convenient when you're running a table or when you're coming back to something. But you do have to leave the windows open. If you close them, it's going to come back to that. So change that setting in the options if you want these to pop back up when you're working on your stuff, so or in a game. And that also works for players too. They just have to go in and enable that. And it's by person, it's not global. All right, so that looks pretty good. So we got the Frost Wizard, we got a custom spell, he's got his own stat block, so that's a good start. I mean, that would have probably taken me a lot longer to do by hand. So if you've ever done anything in Fantasy Grounds, it takes a bit to copy and paste all that stuff in, even if you have all the text at your tips. What I suggest is you paste it into Fantasy Grounds and then work with it inside of Fantasy Grounds, or you can split your screen, or if you have 2 screens, you can kind of do it back and forth that way. But if you only have a single screen, I have 2, but in this case, I'm just using 1 for Fantasy Grounds. But you can split it by using these. If you have Windows 11, you can make 2 panels and copy and paste between those. But it is still very tedious, especially if you're doing a big project. All right, so let's go back to Chat GPT. So what I want to do is I want to create a little bit of art. So let's see if they gave him any kind of description. That's the spell description. Okay, so let's create, I'm going to say create a prompt, an image prompt for this Kalen guy. Kalen the Snow King. Let's see, Kalen So we want to create an image prompt for Kalen with the context of the previous conversations, but I'm going to add some juice to it. So the previous conversations, and then what I want to do is give it some parameters. So I want it to look kind of like D&D artwork. So expert and detailed Dungeons and Dragons character artwork. That'll help a little bit in defining the style that I want. Something you'd see in a role-playing game book. Let's see, the other, I want it kind of like a combination of 3D, but not too much, but also oil painting. So I'm gonna say epic and professionally designed digital oil painting style art. Okay, and then I'm going to say 3D animation, comma, Octane render art style. So I don't want it quite video game, but I don't want it too flat either. So I want a little depth to it. And then I'm going to tell it the orientation. So I kind of want it standing upright. I want this to be vertical. So what I'm going to say is 9:16 for the aspect ratio. I'm going to say tall, vertical. I'll say vertical tall because vertical is priority. So vertical tall aspect ratio. So we'll kind of know. And I want to change this to say create an image for Kalen within the context of the conversation. He is standing in an ice cavern. Actually, he is standing. And what I'll do is put make the background black because I'm going to make it use it in other spots. So if I put too much environment in the background, it's going to make it harder for me to cut it out. So if I want to use it in other ways, it'd be easier to have a black background. So go ahead and ratio. We'll see what it does. So this is the prompt for it. This is just a kind of a basic thing, but I did tell it to look at the context of our conversations above, so it'll pull on that too. And we'll see what it turns out like. I mean, it may look ugly or silly. Sometimes it'll make like anime characters. I'm not really into that, so I'll have it redo it if I don't like it. But this is where you start losing the, yeah, it's not too bad actually. I'm happy with that. That looks really cool. It even has his staff, the frostbite staff. That is really nice. Look at that. You can't get any better. It's not like the old days where you had this distortion and then you had like weird fingers and the eyeballs are weird and all that stuff. It's not like that anymore. They've really come a long ways in how they can handle images. So I'm gonna call that good. I'm not even gonna bother trying to redo that. But I do want to make his lair. So there was a spot in here where it talked about his lair, like where he lived. So I wanted to make that, and then I can superimpose that over if I wanted to. So lair and minions. Okay, so let's do that. So what I'm going to do is ask it first, before I do that, I'm going to ask it to give me the gen ID for this. So I'm going to say, what is the image gen ID, which is like a seed, for the image above. So it's going to give me a special string of numbers that corresponds to that specific engine. And what it does, or that specific image, so what it does is it pulls the color, the style, it's not going to give you an exact thing, but if you want to keep consistent with your artwork, it's good to have the starting point and then keep consistent with this string. So I'm going to say create his lair with, first I want to paste that with the image gen ID number above, and then I'm just going to copy and paste this string. Hit Control V for context, and then I'll say Kalen's lair is a magnificent ice palace. Yeah, so we'll just do the caverns are filled with treacherous okay, I'm going to get rid of where he conducts his experiments, because that's probably not necessary. I'll say his lair is in a magnificent ice palace guarded by creatures of ice and snow. Yeah, so this is kind of, how I want it to be. And then I want to do this one in landscape. So I want to go with a 16:9 landscape. Horizontal. We want horizontal, not landscape. So horizontal. So it knows vertical and horizontal if you want it to try to get it to do it the right direction. And then I'll say landscape aspect ratio. So I kind of want it to be widescreen. Let's see, landscape. And then let's see. And I want it to be Kalen's lair is a magnificent wintry. So I'm going to add a little bit of detail. His palette hidden deep within glacial caves, guarded by creatures of ice and snow, along with reanimated frozen statues of his former kin. So we'll say of elves, because it won't know of high elves. It won't know what his former companions are. So you got to fix these up a little. We'll see what it does. It may turn out crappy. Who knows? But at least it's doing a pretty good job. Like it looks really, like this first one, I'm really impressed with how that came out. That's really nice. He does look like a Jack Frost or whatever, so it's pretty cool. So while this is generating, just kind of keep in mind the scope of your adventure. So that's not bad. I think it's a little busy, but it'll do. I mean, I'm not going to be that picky and waste my time trying to redo it. So this is actually decent. This would hold up. I don't kind of like the fuzziness of it, but that's the mist or the haze that it's trying to show. So I don't mind that, because I said wintry. So that's going to do that. And then you have these frozen ice things. Yeah, that looks really good. Not bad at all. So I start off with saying, it's okay. And now I'm saying, oh, it's really great. So that's something that, you have to play around with and decide if it's worth it, or if you want to redo it. I don't think I need to redo anything. I think that's perfect. So what I want to do now is go to Canva, and this is the tool I use to create content. So what I might do is change the size here, because right now it's sized as a square. So what I'll do is go to File, and I'm going to change the orientation. So first of all, I'm going to say Frostvale Sovereign, just so I have a project name. Okay, Frostvale Sovereign. And then I can, change the settings on it. I can, whatever I need to do, but I want to have that first, change the name. And then the magic switch is something you can do in Canva to allow you to switch the orientation. So sometimes it'll rescale the whole project for you. In this case, it's a blank canvas. So continue, resize the design. Now, if I already had stuff attached to it, I can have it make a copy and it will try to scale everything in as best it can. So now that I have that, what I'm going to do is take that image, the background image, and use that as a starting point. So I take the actual PC and go to my storage drive, my downloads drive, and we'll see what, okay, so here's the images. So I'm going to go ahead and drag these over just so I have them available. Don't need this just yet, but I will go for that edit photo, and then I'm going to have it take the background out, essentially. That's why I wanted to keep it black just in case. Yeah, see, there's that. And then this thing back here is just going to fill in the background like wallpaper, essentially. And that looks pretty good, I have to say. Not too shabby. So I might do something like this. Maybe make this look like he's like standing on a ledge above his kingdom or something like that. I don't know. And then it's not too bad. Not too bad at all. So now with that in mind, what I might do is just add a little bit of drop shadow like behind it, just so it has a kind of like a small amount of like kind of detail on there. So we'll see what it looks like. So edit photo, and then I'm going to go to the effects and go to shadows. So I could do a glow. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so what I might do is instead of this black, like go with a white or kind of a light blue glow. Yeah, that looks really good. Yeah, like that. And then turn the intensity down so it's not so banging right there. Turn the size down because I don't want it to be too overwhelming or too big. Yeah, it's like maybe like there. Maybe blur it just a little bit more. Leave the angle and then put it back where I had it. And then resize it. Yeah, it looks really decent. So I don't know what you guys think, but it turned out okay. It's not bad at all. I mean, that would pass. If you had to run a homebrew game and you were trying to customize some stuff, I mean, you saw it only took me like maybe 5 or 10 minutes to do this whole thing. You know, if I was to do this in Adobe or, you know, some other program, it would take me months to make something like this. I'm not that talented, so I leave the talent to the people who are experienced and that they know what they're doing. I mean, I could figure it out, but it'd take me a couple years just to get to this competency. All right, so that's basically kind of like a poster picture, I guess, would be the best way to describe this. So if you're going to use something like this in Fantasy Grounds, you want to consider that you might need to resize it. Like as I have it now, it's not too bad. Like size-wise, it's 1920 by 1080. But if I wanted to make tokens and all that kind of stuff, you might have to change that. So I'm just going to leave this as it is. But I am going to go to the token stamp tool, and I'm going to grab his head or his body or the picture and make a token for him. So just drag and drop the image onto this free website and then kind of reposition. I stretch this out a little bit. And then I'm going to change this ring. I can either go with a thin one, or I like this kind of this beveled ring. And instead of that beige color, I'm going to use like a blue. Something like that, maybe a little darker. So let's go with something like that, or maybe lighter. Yeah, we want it lighter because when it's on a map, they're hard to see. So definitely lighter, maybe even a little lighter yet. And then fix the picture, like locate it a little bit better. I think that's pretty good. It's a pretty decent looking face. There we go. So there's the token. If we need to use it for anything, there we go. And now I'm going to make a portrait just in case. So I will take this off. So it's just a square down. And then what I'll do is expand the picture, or actually shrink it a little, and put his body in there a little more. So we kind of have more of a portrait instead of a token. So this would be more like something you would put somewhere else in your book if you're designing a book. So we'll do that too. So we got a couple different variations in case we need it. And what I'm going to do with those images is I'm going to save them in this project just so I have them there ready to go. So I'll go ahead and take and put the tokens and the portrait right in this project, even though I'm not going to use them here. I want to save them there so they're all in one spot. So this is kind of a way to help organize it too a little. Probably not the most effective way, but definitely another way to do it. That way, if I need to pull this stuff out again, it's easier to do, and I can just kind of minimize those so they don't dominate the picture. So there's that. And then I want to maybe make some text just in case. Text is really hard to do with Chat GPT. We could try to do it there, but I just prefer to use a text editor because you just end up fighting it. So I actually have a logo thing and a brand, so I can actually change to, I have one called Fantasy Fonts, and all I'm doing with it is just using it for unique fonts that I've uploaded. And then what I'm going to do is go to the brand, and then I'm going to select the type of text. And the only reason I did this is because I have this goofy looking frost text. So I want to see what it looks like. Probably won't use it, but Kalen, oops, didn't do that right. Kalen. Yeah, so that looks crappy. I definitely won't be using that. Let's see, what else do we got here? Frost Giant. So that might work. Here's the crystal. Yeah, so these are probably a little better. Not much though. Are we spelling his name properly? Kalen. Yep. Okay, so we could do something like that, but not quite as cheesy. I think that's a little cheesy. I think I want to do the Frost Giant one. That's probably the better bet here. And then this is just a preliminary. But what I'll do is I'm going to make another copy of this. So duplicate the page and leave this one kind of pristine. And then this one will be like all the workup. So this is kind of like my starting point, and then this will be like the, like Kalen. And then I might do another one, let's say duplicate page, and then get rid of this and these and that, and just have him kind of centered here, and use that in case I want to export it separately without a background or anything. So position, and I'm going to go to arrange. Let's see, how do we do this? Center. There we go. So now that's more centered and it's ready to go in case I need it for something. And it is a corner picture, so that kind of sucks for that. So I'd probably put it down here in this corner, just so I know where the boundaries are. But that's, that's pretty cool. You can definitely get some mileage out of that. So we'll take this, and I'm going to put a little bit of effects on it, see if I can make this a little better. So I want to take and go to this and go to the effects and maybe do the outline. And then I want to change the text color to maybe a dark blue. We'll see. I don't want to go too crazy, but let's see. Why is that not changing? Okay, let's try that. There we go. So that definitely not. There we go. So that's that. I do kind of like the gray. Let's see. Let's see. So under the effect, we can either make that really thick. I don't want it that thick, so maybe around 30-ish. And then kind of not really happy with the font though. But you know, we'll just deal with it. It's not a big deal. It's just a label. And it can be by itself. It doesn't have to be overlaid on the image. So there's that too. There's definitely other fonts that I would prefer, but let's see what this says. Nope. Okay, so that's that. Now I want to make another copy of it. So like that, but I'm going to put a different effect on it. So this is just going to be the hollow part of it and maybe white. And I'll thin it down to like 8. Change the color to like a white and then layer that inside there. So it looks a little better. I mean, it's not perfect, but at least, you know, there's some vibe to it. And then if I wanted to get really fancy, just put some elements in here. See, I could do this kind of cheesy kind of snowflake thing. I think it'll look okay if I just kind of offset it or maybe place it like maybe right there, but then fade it so it's not so cheesy. Like something like that might look a little, that might be okay like that. I wouldn't want to do too many of those. Maybe one other down here and do the same thing. Like just kind of fade it so it's not quite so cheesy. There we go. So there's kind of embellishing that a little bit. And let's go with snow. Let's see what we can do here. See if we can find some snow that'll work. Oh geez, that's I don't think so, but I do like the way it looks. It's very chunky snow though. I think this is going to ruin it, but I think if I put it in the background and I fade it, it's not going to be as bad. So let me turn that down and then turn the position backward. So back, 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 back. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's not too bad. And I think I would need to fade it a little bit more. Maybe down to like 30%. There we go. So now you kind of have this snow effect. And I don't think I necessarily want it like just like that. That's a little bit less obnoxious. So there we go. So that's not too bad. And let's see if there's anything else that might lend itself to this. I could probably use some of these snowdrift things. Let me see if there's a more of a, let's see, like something like this, but for the letters, like maybe on top of the letters, like something like, I don't know, it might be going too far because you don't want to overdo it. It kind of looks too busy. So let me zoom in and take this, bring this forward so that it's all the way to the front, and then do something. Why is it? Okay, so here we go. So something like this. I don't know if I'd use this one per se, but something like that. Let's see if there's anything else. No, I want snow. Okay, so graphics, see all. There we go. So maybe I could use something like this. Or, what the heck? I didn't like what happened there. Oh, geez. Wow. Okay. That might actually work on the bottom, but I don't know if I want it that much. It's a little much. But what I'm thinking about is making this kind of tiny and bringing this into the project like that and put it in the letter somewhere. So let me go with forward, all the way forward, and then shrink it to where it actually fits inside. Something like that. Up close, it doesn't look good. So what I might do is take the letter part and make another copy of it. Let's see if I can. Yeah, that's not quite what I had in mind. But it does look kind of cool, but it's not. Yeah, it's overdoing it. Too much. That's when you know you kind of get too far into it and you kind of ruin it. So now I want that mist though. Definitely want some mist. We'll put a little bit on the bottom just to kind of give it some, yeah, that looks good. So what we'll do is we'll take this mist pattern, kind of put it underneath and behind. So let's go with position. We're going to go behind the assets. And it's barely noticeable anyways, but it kind of gives you that more of that wintry mist kind of look. So this is just kind of some of the stuff you can do if you want to take the time to do it. So then what I would probably do is render this as a just as these 3 pictures and use them for different applications. I'm still not happy with this font. I think it looks like shit, but that's just me. But I mean, I get it, but I don't know. It just doesn't look fancy enough. Just looks really generic, like kind of stupid almost. So this I would not be happy with. So definitely scratch that. Yeah, that was not cool. All right, so basically I want to take this information and bring it into Fantasy Grounds. So then I'm going to move these snowflake thingies off to the side since they're not really accenting anything important right now. Yeah. So that's just a preliminary, type thing where you can do that. So you could take something like this ice, kind of this thing here, and put it in the background. It's kind of hard to see because it's a white background. You do something like this to kind of give it more character. And then what I'll do is make sure it's in the background. So we'll go to backwards, and then I'll render this as a kind of by itself. Let's see what it looks like. So hit share, go to download, transparent background, and then what I want to do is only page 3 and page 1. And now I'll do that. So it's going to render those out, and we'll see what it looks like in Fantasy Grounds. I don't know if this kind of content is interesting to anyone, but it's kind of a process. It's not something you can just whip out. You have to take some time for it. It can get a little boring watching me flounder around here, but hopefully it inspires you to go out and kind of do your own thing. That's what I'm really hoping. I want some good content creators, what I really want. So just take this and extract all of it. And there's the folder. And I'm just going to drag all this stuff in there just so I have it together, because that's important to. And let's take a look here. So we got all these different images. So what I'm going to do is take this folder and copy it into Fantasy Grounds in the assets folder. So I'm going to hit this copy and then go into Fantasy Grounds, and then go ahead and go to the assets, go to the asset tab under the library, and go to click on images, go to folder, and voila. So that is going to be that, but then I'm going to take, like, this token doesn't belong here. It needs to be in the tokens folder. And then I got to rename this stuff. That's important to do. So this would be Kalen, or actually TKN underscore Kalen underscore 01. So that's token right there. And then this is going to be a portrait. So PRT underscore Kalen underscore 01. I do that in case you get different variations. So that 01 also could be a sorting tool. So that I'll say this one's going to be Kalen, just Kalen with art in front of it. And then this thing would probably be like a cover or something. I don't know. We'll say cover underscore. This would be the sovereign. So what was it? Frostvale. I'll just say Frostvale Sovereign. There we go. Okay, so that's basically the images that, and I'm just going to say Frost Veil, and then I'm going to put art in front of it because it is an art piece essentially. So there we go. So just the renaming is important. Once you have them all renamed and such, you want to move them to where you want them to go. So what I'm going to do is in that folder, in here, I'm going to make another folder called tokens. So new folder tokens. And then this other folder is going to be, so I want another folder, portraits. And if I had maps, I'd make another one called maps. So portraits tokens. So I'm going to take these out and I'm going to move them over here. And then this portrait is going to go in the portrait folder. And then this is going to go in the tokens. So now what I'm going to do is do the refresh. That allows Fantasy Grounds to scan through what the changes that you've made. And then those things should be available here. So let's take a look at the Frost Veil thing. It says unable to load file. Oh, it's because of the name. Got it. Yeah, it doesn't like big names. So let me go back into the folder and let's fix that. So this thing here, this is a huge title. So it cannot stand that. So Kalen, we'll say Kalen pose or something. I don't know. Kalen. And that's going to be art underscore. Okay. Now I'm going to refresh it. It'll kick you that error. If you have like a big long file name like that, it'll kick that error at you. Okay. So now it's doing it. So that looks pretty good. So let's change the background. So I'm going to close all this for right now. Let's see what it looks like in the background. So that is that image, and then this is the one with Kalen in it. So let's do that one. So set background image. Yeah, it's a little big, but yeah, it looks pretty good. So what we'll do is tear away these edges in like GIMP or something like that and kind of make it blend in to the background instead of having the square edges. But that looks pretty good. Oh, I noticed a little bit of this squareness right here. No big deal. I can cover that with a snowball. So it's not a big deal. Yeah, it looks good. So going to this thing here, I would probably move that down just a hair. Or what you can do, if you want to cheat a little bit, is you can actually take this image, move it where you want to, and then stick something here to cover that up. That way it doesn't look so obvious, but I'm just going to move that down. I don't need to go through all that. And that would be the same for this. And this. There we go. All right, so let's see what the other artwork looks like. So this is going to go here. What we're going to do is bring up the NPC stat block. Like I said, I had it shortcutted so it's not as hard to find. And then go to images. And what I want to do is when you get all done with your art, if you don't want to individually drag all these things over, you can import them en masse, like all at the same time en masse. So I might just do that. So frost fell. Let's see, I'm not done with it, but I'll say this was Frost Veil Sovereign. Okay, so when you have your group set up, you can click Create from Campaign Assets, or you can import from here, or you can drag them and drop them from your assets. So I might do that just to show you the long way. So if you go to your assets, you go to your images, and then campaign folder, you can pick and choose like which ones you want to bring over. Because if I do all, it's going to bring over the tokens, the portraits, and everything. I just want the art, and I don't necessarily want every piece of it either. So I'm going to bring over the veil, bring over this pose here, bring this over, and then the picture with him in it. So those are the only 4 that I want to actually add to the campaign. So this is the Frost Veil without anything in it. So you could share this with your players. We can even add a little snow to it. So this one doesn't have that extra snow that I dumped on the other picture. So we could actually go into the effects and create an effects layer, and then use the drop down and go with snow. And change this to maybe 2%. And I'm going to put a mask on it so that way it only shows up inside of the picture. I don't want that snow all over the whole image. So something like that. And then from here, what we'll do is we'll adjust the amount, maybe turn up the intensity a little bit, slow down the speed a little bit, and the size can come down a hair. There we go. So this is kind of like a wintry scene that you could share with your players during your game, and you get that illusion of snow. So it's kind of cool. I don't think I'd do much more with it. I think that's good enough. It kind of shows it's snowing a little bit. Maybe there's clearing out here, but maybe above here there's some clouds, and you got the shadow of the valley in here. It's kind of cool. So you can do that. Let's see what this Kalen looks like. Yeah, so this is offset, but you could use this in a different, in a different format. Yeah, there's that snowflake thing in the background. I don't know if I would keep that, but you probably want to center that more. And here's the cover. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Not bad. All right, so now I can take that token. So let me go to modules, or go into the assets again, and then go to tokens. And what I need to do is go to folder. Okay. So what I need to do is take this. This is the campaign folder now. So images, I'm going to take this folder, cut it, go back here, and paste it here. Yep. So now I'm going to refresh, and then go to the campaign folder, and then drag this token up to here. So that's going to be the actual token. And as far as the artwork goes, now that I have those images imported, I might take that pose, not this one, but the one that just shows him, drag and drop that right there, and that'll look pretty good for an NPC and the artwork and everything that goes along with it. So hit Control Z. I want to mess with that. Why is it doing that? Oh, I see. Got it. Okay. So I'll leave it like that, but basically this is how, how you put all this stuff together. And now that this will be linked to there, so when I share the NPC, I can bring up that image and share it with my players. So they get kind of a taste of what he looks like. If I wanted to, I can make it cooler and put like snow in here, like I did with the other picture. So let's see what we can do. So let's go to Effects, come down here and grab make an effects layer. Come up here, grab some snow, use the slider, and kind of just barely put a little bit of fade on it. Put a mask on it. Yeah, I want to make sure I got this right. Nope, this is wrong. Okay, so put a mask on it, and then left click and drag so that it's only on the picture, and then play around with these settings. There we go. So that looks pretty cool. So when I want to share that with the players, I actually have something I can, kind of give them and kind of brings the picture to life. So it's not so boring. Yeah, looks pretty good. So that picture there would be shared occasionally with the players during the game. If you bring up the stat block. And the last final thing is to check it on the combat tracker. So if I bring this up to the combat tracker, I can check it on there. Well, one thing I wanted to show you was how to change a spell. So this has a spell there. I don't know if it's going to pick it up because it's a custom spell, but I did make it. But it won't necessarily pick that up. So we'll have to see. But I need to edit out the word or this custom spell thing because I didn't put that on the spell description. So there we go. Okay. And let's see what it does. Yeah, see, Ice Knife, it failed to look up this spell because I didn't have the module open. But this is kind of the thing you got to look for. So you go to this here, and you come over here to the attacks. So the offense, there's the spells right there. So I don't think Ice Knife made it. Yes, because it's not a SRD thing. So, but it did grab the Frost Nova, which is good. So it did create that unique spell because it was in the correct format. So if I wanted to make this right, I'd have to load the player's handbook. So what I would do in that case is I would rename it to something else like Ice Dagger or something like that. And it'd be good. So change the spell name and all that, redo this list, kind of update it, maybe make a copy of ice whatever, and kind of reword it a little bit and then add it back in. But it did create all those, so that's good. So let me close this and reopen it. And this is what you got. So there's the spells. And here's the summary in the back. So it looks pretty good. So that's just an hour's worth of work. But honestly, if I would have taken, everything from scratch, I would still be working on it. It'd be like a week before I even got close to this. So that's kind of why I chose to use some AI to do some of this heavy lifting, because it just takes way too long to do everything from scratch. And that's why people want to buy, modules and stuff, because a lot of that stuff's already done for you. But if you want to do like homebrew, custom content, or even just build a little something for yourself, I mean, it won't take as long if you use a tool like that. But I did provide the link for the content creator, which is this. It's this 5e content creator. It is public. I did put it in the description of the video. So after I'm done yapping here, that description will be here. But just know that you have to have a paid version of OpenAI Chat GPT. But you can make your own. You don't have to use mine. The only thing that I've done to it is I've given it some parameters ahead of time. You can kind of, if you have a paid version, you can do this yourself. So in the edit GPT under configure, I gave it some instructions. I told it to look at the SRD and to follow the instructions for the 5e rule set for Fantasy Grounds. I had some conversation starters, and then I uploaded my own knowledge files, which are just basically just, format of what I want. And then it has some of the wording and the phrasing that's required for Fantasy Grounds. But other than that, that's all I did. It's not rocket science. So if you are kind of familiar with AI, you can do your own. But this is a really cool way to create content. It's a lot quicker and a lot more efficient. All right, I think I'm going to let you guys go. Have a good weekend. What's today is Thursday. Yeah, so happy Friday tomorrow. And I hope that this helped you guys a little bit. Yeah, I know I yammered on for an hour, but hopefully this was, or hour and a half actually. But this is just the kind of thing that you might get into if you're going to use AI. So you guys take care. Have a wonderful afternoon.